beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The world was formless and void. God created certain ministers to assist him in the administration of the cosmos, powers or forces, if you will. Gravity to move the planets, love to move men's hearts, and natural law to move societies closer to heaven. It was this, the natural law, that was the most important to generationally preserve. Just as the force of gravity dictated how physics ought to act, so too were societies bound by certain laws of God. Laws such as humans cannot be owned, or justice is for all, regardless of belief or tribe. Throughout time, natural law was there, guiding civilizations. Societies would experiment with how to live. Some things they would create, and it would be purely cultural, such as what to put on your feet, or what should the speed limit be. Others struck to the core of a civilization, which humans are permissible to own.
None.
What rights may women exercise?
All.
Societies would experiment with these boundaries. At some points, they would abuse natural law, and society would suffer. Sometimes they would adhere to natural law, and all would benefit. However, all things pass. Nothing stays gold. The goal of every great society is to codify their alignments with natural law into stone, so they may last throughout generations. Nations rose and nations fell, each standing on the backs of their predecessors, each generation inheriting the fruits of their ancestors' blood, sweat, and tears. The lessons the parents learnt were passed on to their children. What was revolutionary for the father was the status quo for the son. But not every experiment was correct. Progress is not assured. Children did indeed inherit the benefits of their parents, but they also inherited their parents' sins. For you see, the Dark One was brooding. God allows certain demons to tempt individuals so they might realize their dependency on Him. He also allows certain ones to tempt societies for the same reason. You see, the spawn of Satan, the greatest of the evil one's creations, was none other than positive law. A perversion of natural law, positive law repeated to men the lie the serpent told in the garden: "You shall be as gods." He told mankind that they did not need God's law, that they could create a just society on their own. Unfettered by a higher power, law became just another means to power. Those who held the reins of society now had the choice of whether to exercise economic, cultural, or legal power to reinforce their regime. After all, they were all just interchangeable. No longer were kings charged with creating rules that encouraged a just society. Instead, they were charged with reinforcing the ruling class. The same questions posed to earlier society were now subject to re-questioning. Which humans are permissible to own?
The weak.
What rights may women exercise?
The ones I decide.
Instead of experimenting, waiting to see the results, and then codifying, leaders in society began re-examining everything immediately. This generation knew best. We are the peak of all human civilization. All civilizations. Such as it was, nothing stays gold. This case stands at the precipice between the days of old and the days of now. Natural law still reigns supreme, but positive law, or I shall now reveal it, evil law, begins to show its head.
In the tumultuous waters of law and justice, two forces prepare to clash. On one side stands the divine wisdom of natural law, the belief in inherent rights that transcend human-made statutes. On the other, the fleeting structure of positive law, the doctrine that upholds man's written rules above all else. Today, these titans will battle for supremacy. Fanning the flames of the Spanish-American War, the U.S. enforced a blockade against Cuba, seizing ships and claiming them as spoils of victory. This turbulence would spawn many casualties as war raged across the oceans. In this maelstrom, 2 innocent ships, the Paquete Habana and the Lola, were captured. Their cargo was not munitions or Spanish soldiers, only fish to sell, fish that could provide food to the Cuban people, fish that ensured the sailors would get paid, fish that would keep themselves and their families secure during this time of strife. The ships made no move to run the blockade and had no military armaments, but it made no difference. They were taken as prizes of war. The crew would be left helpless, now prisoners of a war they played no part in starting. The cargo, ships, hull and all, would be auctioned off to the highest bidder. The will of the imperialist sovereign was effectuated. In an attempt for justice, the owners of the ship brought suit. Facing the formidable might of the U.S. government, the fishermen knew they were up against more than just a government at war. They were challenging the rising power of positive law. Their case would question the nature of rights and justice in a world increasingly ruled by man-made statutes. Standing for the inherent rights of individuals, they would fight against the system which did not recognize the vulnerable, leaving them to be crushed beneath a cold, unyielding law. This is the duel of the doctrines.
I am natural law, the embodiment of moral principles that transcend human creation. I am the foundation upon which all laws must be built. I guide humanity through my principles of fairness and justice. I will not let harm come to the innocent fisherman, but will protect the weak. Justice is not confined to the most will of the most powerful. It is available to all, discerned through the spirit of mankind. Even in war, fishermen must be spared, for their hands carry not weapons, but life itself.
I am positive law, the structure of rules established by society's legitimate authorities. It is through my codified statutes that order is maintained, for powers enforced in those statutes, not the spirit of mankind. Spare me your sentiment. What matters is what's written, what is enforced. Without laws, we fall into ruin. Exceptions create weakness.
It is not an exception, but a law as true as any other. Derived from history, customs, and the collective wisdom of humanity. This wisdom that reveals transcendent moral truths must provide the basis of the law, not merely the temporary spirit of the age. The mistakes of our forefathers can be repeated. When our laws are silent, we must proceed by doing what's good and right, and not what's convenient for today.
How do you think your customs gain enforceability? Through the will of a sovereign. It is power that ensures consistency, without which the world will spiral into chaos. Decency needs boundaries.
You ignore the spirit of justice. Your laws are mere shackles without mercy.
The law is supposed to be clear, documented, and enforced, or else it is meaningless.
The law is more than power. It takes more than simply the will of a sovereign to give it life, but a moral compass to awaken those cold statutes. The fate of these fishermen should be driven by inherent human decency and mercy, something that can never be codified completely.
But without me, those principles have no practical application. I bring order and enforceability with my lofty ideals.
Your lofty ideals, the right and just outcome is not simply your will. The timeless principles of mercy and humanity are not yours or mine, but transcend both of us. You would submit these fishermen to your petty will. Justice may flow through ink and paper, but is not there confined. It flows through the spirit of mankind, as eternal as the oceans. Even in war, fishermen must be spared, for their hands carry not weapons, but life itself.
Don't lecture me, natural law. What matters is the ink. Morals change. Sentiments change. Ink remains.
You would enforce the coldest law written in ink, no matter its cost in blood, while justice suffers. Your laws are mere shackles to your own whims. I will spare the Paquete Habana because mercy exists beyond law.
This is war. There is no mercy. The Paquete Habana is my prize. They are casualties of war.
You cannot punish those who merely fish to survive.
You dare steal my prize from me?
No rule can foresee every situation. When the law is silent, mercy speaks. That is why justice breathes. Laws are meant to serve justice, not bind it.
Statute storm!
Universal rights sword! Laws are meant to serve justice, not bind it.
I may have lost today, but I will return. And then you will be lost to time, a relic of a bygone era.
And so, in the battleground of the Paquete Habana, natural law prevailed. Customary international law was adopted into the United States as common law. In matters involving international law, where no ink has yet to be spilled, the courts should look to him, the natural law, in order to decide the matter. Yet, as he vanishes, his presence lingers, an eternal whisper to those under the heel of unjust law. For in the darkest of times, when hope seems lost, natural law will return once more, bringing with him the light of humanity and the eternal flame of justice.